Please email Jess Lujan at jessthebuzz@gmail.com. The Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. Show tonight, exciting show. A good former colleague, now Lieutenant Governor of Guam, Ray Tenorio. Good afternoon, good evening.
Good afternoon,
Lieutenant Governor. And at time, are you acting governor?
No,
not anymore. Okay.
Not yet.
Anyway, I always have to find out when you're sitting here because a lot of times you're acting governor. But anyway, recently we heard about, of course, you have oversight of public safety.
Sure.
We heard about right-sizing the police department. It's the first time I've heard that in a long time, to right-size it, because there's always been this challenge of the police department, most especially when you had deployments or people who are retiring, where you have high-ranking officers doing positions, again, that maybe PO1s, PO2s are doing. But the right sizing, what exactly does that mean for the police department?
I think right sizing is usually associated with downsizing or trying to reduce the force, and that's the opposite of what we need to do. I think right sizing is more associated, at least in my mind, at how do we make sure that we promote the sergeants so you don't have PO2s who are supervising the first line of patrol officers or any given specialized unit. How do we promote the people to the higher levels so that you have a full complement of colonel, majors, of course the captains and lieutenants, so that the management is well stocked. And that way you have, like we do now, you have captains who are commanders of precincts again. That's the way it used to be years ago when I was first a police officer. So I think for me, right sizing is giving the department the personnel in the right rank structures so they not only raise morale but increase the capacity of the department. We need a lot of police officers on the road, and I've asked the police chief and this management team now to look at a service matrix, which the government of Guam has been criticized about for some time. The fire department has a service matrix as it deals with, for example, ambulance response or a fire engine. You need a fire truck to come to a fire scene. There's a certain number of minutes that's expected on a percentage. In other words, 95% of the time, ambulance should arrive within X number of minutes, let's say 5. And so if you get an ambulance on the scene within 5 minutes, then you've met that service matrix. We want the same level of service for the Guam Police Department. So if you have a domestic violence or a robbery or any kind of situation that's an urgent thing, then you should get a police officer with X number of minutes. If you're going to have a lesser crime, let's say a burglary that's already completed or a theft of property, those kind of things that don't require an immediate code response, then you should get a police officer within Y number of minutes. And I want to associate that number with the number of officers and tell that to the legislature essentially that, okay, if you give us a force of 400, we'll be able to respond, we'll be able to respond to a domestic violence, robbery, or other urgent situation within 3 minutes. If you have less than 400, let's say 350, then you'll have a force to be able to respond within 5 or 6 minutes. So those number of minutes make a difference.
Sure.
So if you have a domestic argument, the quicker you get there, the faster you can resolve it, settle things out, separate the parties and avoid loss of life or injury.
And that will mean basically that you have a fully staffed and a police department based on their population and whereabouts they're located, precincts and things
Correct.
of that nature. Now let me ask you this, because I know when the police chief came in, he looked at I think it was the police reserve they had there, and didn't quite meet, I guess, specification or certification and all that. Now, I know he had said at the time, and I guess in former police chiefs, they needed to do what they needed to do to get, I guess, officers in our communities because of the shorthandedness, whether deployment or whatever it may be. It worked at the time. But again, as a accreditation process or a standard in policing, the police chief wasn't satisfied. They didn't meet that standard. So he said, okay, these folks they need additional training. to be done. Has that all been completed now?
It's all fixed. It was more of a technical problem. It was no malice, no ill will.
Yeah.
It was everybody working toward getting those officers on the road. You know, Fred Badai was a great chief of police, is a good friend. I was his field training officer when he first came into the police department out of the Marine Corps, and he's still a solid guy today as he was then. Far more educated, far more experienced, like we all are. But he did a good job, and GI Cruz, of course, is doing filling that role and doing a good job as well. And they both bring very different, you know, backgrounds to the police department. But these technical issues are just that. They're technical. You find the problem, you fix it. There was no ill will or whatnot. Those officers have since gone through the academy, those 2 training modules that they needed to do, and they've resolved it. Now, Post has been able to fix that, and I'm very proud of the Guam Police, of course, the other public safety agencies, including the fire department, who have adopted the Post standards. And there's different categories of peace officer as defined by the law. And you know, Mark Chopras, as senator, was the one who wrote that law 20 plus years ago, and no administration, you know, up until ours now, have been able to implement it. And these are system changes, and the systems include, you know, what are the standards for a person who's going to be able to take your liberties, to be able to carry a deadly weapon, someone who can arrest you. Those are things that you have to make sure that the level of training that you receive is such that every person in this community has confidence that you've received the basic knowledge necessary to do that job. Same as the physical fitness standards. I mean, you know that. I mean, police officers and customs and other people who are peace officers, even including marshals in the Superior Court, really have not been held to a standard like physical fitness. Now we have that. PFQT is taking place. The courts are moving aggressively. The police, the firemen, everybody's on board. Now, it may take some modifications to the law, but we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwash. We have to change a couple things. One was, you know, the waistline, because we adopted the Air Force standards, which was really the easiest of all the standards to comply with, because it allows for a lot of variations in meeting the physical exertion and showing that you're in good health. And that's really the long-term goal, is that if you have a healthier police officer or fireman or customs officer, he's at work more. If he's not as healthy, then his limitations on not just being able to apprehend a suspect, but be able to come to work. Those are essential things. So Post and PFQT, getting those, resolving those technical issues with training, those are things that we looked at the long term, not the short term.
Now, let me ask you this, because when we look nationwide and what's happening, I mean, gosh, I mean, I'm glad that our police department is not going through nationwide what the police is going through. But it's very important as well in regards to this. Now, whether the legislature had corrected this, because the Police Review Commission, I remember, I think they themselves, they said they disbanded because of the fact that they can't move forward. Some of the things they're tasked to do is contrary to or against what civil service is supposed to be doing or on all that. Do you know whether the legislature had fixed that? And is the police review, because I think it's under the purview of the administration to appoint those members there. But do you know whether they fixed that mechanism, you know, for the Police Review Commission?
No, I don't think so. And I'll tell you one more thing. I think it's inorganic. The ability to control the executive branch. The governor has the responsibility under the Organic Act to control, manage, and ultimately deal with the issues of the police department through his chief of police. And having a unit other than the Civil Service Commission to be able to essentially reverse those decisions outside of the Civil Service Commission regime, which we respect. Police Review Commission, I think, undermines the authority of the governor of Guam and his chief of police. That said, the technical issues dealing with the Police Review Commission have not been resolved. And I think that the reason for that is it's a highly contentious issue with respect to, you know, if you have a chief of police who makes a decision and it's already subject to the review of the Civil Service Commission, you have another entity that can reverse the chief executive's decision with respect to discipline. This really kind of builds a completely different mousetrap.
As a super commission.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, I was a former cop, and I love the guys and the women who are out there protecting our community. Every peace officer, every person who puts their life on the line, they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've increased their compensation by 40%. We back paid their overtime, which is, I mean, the compensation difference which is a huge nut to crack. We've dealt with past due compensations and desk audits, and our administration's cleaned up a lot of things that are on the books for many, many years. And Governor Cabo really should be applauded because, you know, he's tackled some really big issues. and he's faced some stiff opposition. But we've done the right things for the right reasons in the police department and public safety. I don't think there's much really any other governor or lieutenant governor can say that they've done beyond that. You're going to always need more officers, always need more equipment, always need more training. But one of my goals is to hopefully, God willing, the opportunity presenting itself, we'd like to build a public safety headquarters so the officers and the rest of the government, Guam for that matter, doesn't have to be nomads paying somebody else's mortgage when they could be paying for their own. I think the taxpayers deserve to have that.
Well, I mean, there's one thing that the conversation has switched because when the Calvo Tenorio administration first came in, the conversation with public safety was totally different in regards to how many ambulances, how many police cars, and all that. And now, see, we're talking about making sure that we have the right amount and to respond at the right time. And people were complaining out there prior to you guys, the administration coming in, to say they're taking forever. And it's not because, I mean, you had shortages of staff, but you had the vehicles, shortage of vehicles for them to respond to whatever the call may be. But well, I'll have you elaborate on that when we come back because I got to pay some bills right now.
Absolutely.
Okay? Be right back.